So, hello, Kim Searle. How are you?
Thank you, Gary, for having me here today. I'm good, thank you. Hot.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm in my garden studio. It's a fancy word for a. It's a nice shed. It's a big.
I was going to say it's a shed,
Uh, but it's
but a lovely one.
Christ, it's hot in here.
Oh, I can only imagine, actually.
Yeah, but I can't complain. Us painters like to moan about the weather all the time. But you can't complain when it's sunny, can you?
No.
So I
Yes.
appreciate you coming on. So I recently got in touch with Quest again. So I was explaining to you before we come on about how Brush Wizards all started and the wellness side of it, and my journey learning to be a cognitive hypnotherapist, which I learned at Quest, and you did the same many years ago.
I did, yes.
Yeah, I spoke to Sarah and I said, look, I want to reignite these conversations again because I used to do them on Zoom and we used to stream it into Facebook, but then Facebook stopped it and then I kind of went off the boil a little bit. So now I've got the podcast going. I'm really excited to speak to people like yourselves and talk about the type of work you do with people because I think people, when they've got problems, the conventional way is obviously to go to a doctor, isn't it? And then they're on a waiting list for the yonks. And quite
Mm.
often there's another route, isn't there? And Quest Cognitive Hypnotherapy is amazing, but what you do now is you're a mindset coach, right? So
Yes.
you've evolved over a number of years and you help people, and I'm just so interested to hear the type of work you do. And I know you've worked with tradies before,
Yes, I have, yes.
so yeah. After my waffling on there, it's great. It'd be great to hear kind of what you do, and how you help people.
Yeah. Well, I think the key thing here is helping people. And you're right, there is just a plethora of opportunities out there for people who can do that. But it becomes overwhelming for the individual who's got the problem. I had a chat recently with a gentleman who was going to come and see me, and he then came back and he said it just feels too big. He said I don't want to be dealing with all that stuff of the past. I just want to overcome the habits. And I hear what he's saying. What he really needed then, it was less my role, but he needed just a practical coach, a business coach, if you like. Although it wouldn't overcome the problem, it would just get him over the hump of the problem. It would just erupt somewhere else at some point for him to deal with. It's a bit. Do you remember those games that they've got the pegs that stand up and you bash them down, and
Yeah.
then they pop back up or whatever?
Yes.
It's a bit like that. That's what'll happen. You can mask the problem, but if you bash it down, sticking plaster or whatever you do, it'll just pop up somewhere else as being a problem. And he did make me think, it must be really difficult for somebody to reach out and realize it's not the person they need, or not, not the person they want, or have some ideas about how they can be helped. And consequently, they're probably bypassing a large number of people who can step into the role that they need. So
Yeah.
it was an eye opener for me and one to think about. Yeah, so I do blended work. I do the cognitive hypnotherapy, which I loved because I'm very much in the head. Still am a bit. I'm getting better, living in my head. So
Yeah.
overthinking,
Same
all that
here.
good stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's really good for that. And I think that's why I was drawn to cognitive hypnotherapy, because it starts with obviously this idea of how you develop, and how the brain works and operates,
Mm,
and where it could go wrong. And not wrong as in bad, but as
mm.
in being trained wrong. So if you get
Yes.
an apprentice, you need to be teaching the best you can so that he can be as useful as he can in the life that he is with you, or at least get to a point where he can go off on his own and, be a good representation of the trade. It's the same sort of thing. If your brain has not been mentored and managed through that very young age group, yeah, you've got more problems than you realise.
Yeah, that's what fascinated me with, when I got help. Like I'd seen different therapists, and we done a lot of talking, and we were
Yes.
talking and talking and talking about it. And 6, 7, 8 sessions in, we were still talking about it. And nothing was really changing. And I don't know who recommended Jane from Quest, but what became apparent very quickly was, like you said, understanding how my brain worked. And very, very quickly, I was kind of like, I'm starting to get it now. Without realizing how, I was starting to feel different. And it was like magic to me. I was like, wow, I just feel so brilliant with my fascination of how the mind and body works and reading up and everything else, which didn't change, but I was still fascinated about reading it all. For to have such a quick change, that's why I was like, right, I really want to train to become one because it's been amazing. Yeah, I just enjoyed it so much that time at Quest. Understanding how the brain worked, it's just not something I ever really come across before.
It's so powerful.
Mm,
I've got one of the things that I've started to develop is my key principles, if you like, about what I do, and the results that you're getting in life. You'd be a successful business or health or time at the gym, whatever, wherever in your life you're getting results. It will be down to your programming.
mm,
So if you're not getting the results, it's not your fault, is the second one. So the first one is it starts with you. You've got to become more self aware of what you're doing, just like you would if you were working. Do you know what I mean? Am I working up to standard? Am I doing all the right things? The health and safety aspect, all that good stuff. But you've got to be aware of what you're doing. And
yeah,
then the next thing is, once you've got over it, all starts with you, is realizing that what can be learned can be unlearned. And you are just a combination of a whole host of learnings from all different inputs, some of which you know and some of which you don't. And it's the ones you don't know that can flip us up. So,
yeah. You kind of in a loop, aren't you? In any
mm,
given moment,
yeah.
like trying to predict a future, looking, analyzing stuff, see if that relates to something in the past, and you're just in this continuous loop, and that's why it seems you're very rarely very conscious where you can analyze yourself and make changes. And that's why a month goes, a year goes, a decade goes, and you kind of just stuck in this your own world, so to speak.
I can attest to that personally.
Mm.
So, um, but I think I guess for me, one of the things that I link into other well-known people who've done things, and James Clear,
Yeah,
Atomic Habits.
love it.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I've used him a couple of times because it helps people understand how they're doing habits, and that actually everything we do is a habit. It's the brain's shortcut to freeing up some memory on the whole computer to make sure, or the phone, depending on what you use most, to make sure that you've got capacity to keep yourself safe,
Mm.
because the brain is acting like a radar to keep us safe. So, and it does that not here, ironically. This is the processor, but through the nervous system. And this is a new learning for me, Gary, because I'm on a journey myself. So in the last 12 months, probably, I've started to, I talked about it before, but now I sort of understand a bit more. It's this nervous system that is acting as an extension to the brain, which is your radar. It's keeping you safe. It's watching out for difficulties. Those times when you suddenly realize there's something just about to happen and you can stop it. That's the nervous system picking up on something and you've no idea what it is and transmitting that back to the brain to process it and do something. The body will do something, freeze, fight, flight, where the body responds. The freeze, for those who may not know, I don't know how much your audience will be aware, is where you do nothing. The flight is where you run away, move yourself out of the way, whatever, and then the fight is where you get in there and you tackle whatever's going on, and that's the nervous system sending messages to different parts of the brain, and then the brain decides on what the action will be after that. So it's very powerful, I
So,
think.
can the nervous system like have a memory as well? Yeah.
One of the people that I've there's a few of them. Um, Dr. Bruce Lipton, I think Dr. Joe Dispenza, and
Mm.
a couple of others all talk about cellular memory. And It's whether you call that genetics or something else, I don't know. I think it's a combination of genetics and the fact that the body has remembered something. It's why people who've ever experienced trauma get triggered by something very similar, but not necessarily the same.
Mm.
And triggered, I mean that they will respond in a way that they're not consciously doing. So I'm just trying to think if I had any examples from the people that I've seen that is appropriate. Probably not, but
Mm.
it's I don't know. You have an electrical shock, which is obviously a trauma, and now you become over zealous over making sure that all the electrics are safely used and managed properly. So it can be that sort of thing. And then when you find and something else happens that you don't expect that's going to go wrong, that trigger will set off the same response. So the nervous system is watching. That is, in fact, the part of the unconscious mind, that deeper mind, that's not just this thinking free feeling in the brain. It's much deeper. That is doing all the keeping you safe, and
So
consequently, that
yeah,
nervous system is panning outside, but it's bringing stuff in.
yeah,
Hello, that's not good. It
yeah.
likes to be it wants to be included with everybody, so it will take on everything. And one of the things, sorry, just going on a little bit more, one of the things that I've picked up from COVID, and that whole period is how quickly the fear escalated.
Mm. Yeah.
Because hold on a moment, you're frightened. What am I missing? And all the nervous systems were all tuned in like a radio wave, if you like. They were all tuned
Mm.
into the same station, and you just found the whole fear thing blown out of proportion to a degree. I'm not saying it wasn't wrong, and I'm not into the whole COVID theories or whatever, but I'm talking about it from how the body responded. So in the family, I had some who were really terrified and were urging me to do all sorts of things, whereas I was probably more practical and balanced.
Yeah.
So I lived alone. I didn't go out very often. The only people I saw was family. So it's like, don't worry, it's fine. We'll be okay. Hmm.
Mm. So
So
it's almost like a hidden kind of, like your nervous system's like a frequency which your body you can pick up off other people,
yes,
but you don't know. There's no exact science as to how you pick it up.
no,
So then, like you say, in lockdown, if your parents were panicking and you've got young children in your family, obviously they would pick up on it, on that frequency.
children. Yeah, the children more than anything, because
Mm.
the brain doesn't, the thinking brain doesn't really develop till we're 7 or 8, you may recall.
Mm.
So before that, we're just absorbing everything, and they
Mm.
absorb energy. So if the parent is stressed, worried, anxious, the child won't have any idea what's going on, but it won't feel safe. And it doesn't understand why, and therefore the child will pick up. So it's one of the common factors when I'm seeing people who are anxious. Should we use that as a starting point? Is that their parents, one or both parents, were anxious, and they picked it up as a child. They
In
learned it.
terms of, it's yeah, really fascinating all this. When I was saying we'd done these chats before, it brought back so many memories of me, training and qualifying. I always try and, like, now obviously relate it back to painters and decorators, which we know we have our struggles and the workloads and all the admin. But what I find fascinating is how some are really successful. They charge well, um, don't suffer from anxiety, they know their worth. And yet you get others which are brilliant at what they do, but most Sunday nights they can be worrying about, like, their up and coming jobs and stuff. And when I've spoken to those people, it's like, when's the last time you had a complaint? And they're like, well, never. And it's just interesting, isn't it? Like how you're brought up and your belief about yourself and your
Mm,
identity, how that how that can change your outcome in your business.
absolutely, and I wholeheartedly understand what you're saying. A friend of mine's husband runs his own decorating business,
Mm.
and like all trades, he does really, really well. He specializes, but not wholly. in older buildings. So,
Yes.
he goes all out and he's really good at his job. And I don't think he's got any that I'm aware of anxiety stuff, but he does suffer with the stress side of things because he's got to combine that with the selling side of things. So consequently, he is very aware he's trying to keep his team employed. So he's got to make sure, like you say, Sunday night, he's got everything organised and make sure that they turn up. One of the problems with tradespeople is the idea that some people, particularly if they're not on the cards, may be a bit more flexible with their working behaviours. So he's got that, and just making sure he's got work for them for the foreseeable future. And I know last year or the year before he was really struggling with that.
Mm.
There was definitely a downturn, and he got through. But it's not the point. It's the stress of managing all that on a
Mm.
day-to-day basis can take its toll. Not in the short term, not in the next year, not in the next 10 years. You
Yeah.
might start to see the effects of that. Because one of the things that I don't understand, I'm still learning, is that I became ill back in 2017 and 18, and it was burnout through various things. And I'm still recovering from it. And people don't understand the impact on your health
Yeah.
when you do not look after yourself. And stress, they say, is a big killer and a silent killer at that, because it's your blood pressure, it's weight gain, diabetes. And diabetes isn't just down to what you eat and drink.
Mm.
It's your own chemical hormones you're throwing everywhere into
Yeah.
the
If you got
system.
high cortisol and running through your system and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Mm.
So I do understand it. And why do you get the difference between those who just, seem to glide through life and those who seem to have this going on? Is definitely anything that's gone on in the background in the past. They may be wanting to be perfect.
Mm.
To manage
Perfectionist.
that
Yeah.
level of perfection, perceived level of perfection, because there is no such thing as perfect, maybe in their eyes, but to try and maintain that in itself is stressful, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Those who are people pleasers,
Plenty of them in the group. Yeah. And
right?
I was a
Okay.
people pleaser.
Oh, I do know, and I think those who suffer most tend to be more giving of who
Yeah.
they are, and I'm not just talking about time and money, but what's going on, Yeah, don't worry, I'll see if I can sort that out. And they squidge in extra jobs here, there, and
Yeah.
everywhere
Yeah.
to do the best for their client.
But
And
often, sorry to interrupt you there,
no, please do.
when you give more because you're a people pleaser, it often causes more problems as well. Because that customer can then take the mickey out of you and be like, oh, you didn't do X, Y, and Z, because they're kind of got the upper hand. So you're like a little lapdog, sort of, yes, what do you want doing? I'll do the extras. And then quite often they're problem clients in terms of getting money from them. Whereas if you have more authority about yourself and you're like, yeah, sure, I can do it, but it's going to cost an extra 200 quid or whatever, people respect you more. So it's a really, as much as you're looking to please people, it has almost the opposite effect.
It does, and you're absolutely right. I used to be a project manager in a previous life, and one of the challenges you had with keep saying yes, it's changing the project, which means the
Mm,
delivery date changes, the costs change, the resourcing changes. There was so
mm,
much impact on what the client just thought was a quick something. Well, no, we've got to organise the resource, we've got to book them out, we've got to organise them to get to site, we've got to go through your change control, we've got to make sure health and safety is in place. There was a whole raft of things
mm,
to do before we even got that little job done.
yeah,
So I think you're right, and you do have to be careful who you do it for. If it's a regular client who comes back, I don't know, maybe a business who has you in on a regular basis to do whatever you're going to do, then you learn, don't you? And yeah, okay, I'm happy to do you an extra. But always, even if you're a people pleaser, I think the thing to look at is boundaries. To
yes,
understand, you've had your bad clients in the past. Well, write down what they did and work out how you're going to handle it if it crops up in the future, because you've got the
mm,
experience. Let's use it. And that's one of the
yeah,
things that I talk about as well. Is it's as a project manager, it's sort of like a risk and issues a log that we used to keep. We know it might happen. So what will we do if it does? So it's a little mini plan. It's a sentence. They're going to
Yeah.
ask me for something. My
Yeah.
favourite phrase on that is thank you. I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
It postpones it so you can think about
Yeah.
it. It can be for 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be for long if you're a people pleaser, but give yourself a pause between the question being asked and you giving your answer. And it will
Yeah.
just help you, I think. I used to use it in projects all the time. Was okay, yeah, thank you for that. Making sure I'm clear. Let me get back to you on that one. Say when you're going to get back. I'll get back to you tomorrow morning, get back to you tomorrow night. And if you don't, then keep them informed, and you'll be able to charge them normally. Then
Yeah.
does that make sense?
So if you look, yeah, I mean, so that's just one aspect, isn't it? If you look at, like you say, your subconscious is sort of programmed between 0 and 7 years old, and
Yes.
shapes your kind of life and how, it may not have been deliberate or a bad upbringing, but just how your parents were, how your peers were. So that could be, that's one, being a people pleaser, feeling like, just as an example, having to please your parents to get their love. And so much can relate to it, even like money, so a lot of painters, they'll be like, I can't charge X amount a day or whatever, because again, that's a belief from their upbringing perhaps, and what their parents earned, that kind of thing.
Mm.
And even like on paint and materials, many painters like, oh no, I can't charge the customer a percentage on top, because I'll be ripping them off, so to speak. So it's all these little programs which could affect your overall business and how successful you are.
I agree, and a lot of that's down to how their perceived value. Um,
Mm,
and I'm gonna be honest, some people just won't value your time or
no.
your efforts, and you're not necessarily going to know who they are. So it's really important, I think, to be clear up front about what you will and won't do and how much you're charging, and get a sense of what others are charging, and
Mm,
go in if you need to, because your own personal self-worth, your value of what you do. Very often I'll talk to somebody and they say, "Oh, I'm just." Well, no, you're not just. This is
mm,
your profession. You've studied for this. You've trained for this. You've qualified. You've done a lot for this. So it's
mm.
it's it's like that old story. Was it around a submarine that had a problem? Something wasn't working, some shaft or whatever, and they
Mm,
called in this expert, and he came in with his hammer, and he was tapping around for about 10 minutes, and
yeah,
then he said, what his price was. Well, you were only here 10 minutes, and he said, yes. He said, 1% of that cost is for me tapping. 99% is for my experience and knowing where
yeah,
the problem is. And I
yeah,
think it would be really useful if we could help translate that for everybody who is
mm,
working for themselves in business. They're not paying for your time.
mm,
They're paying for your knowledge, your experience, and
100%.
doing the job in a way that works for them. Who, if it's a lady who's employed with you, or a woman, and even men, they want you to not, to do it as not just easy, but so there's not too much impact on them. So clean up after yourself, be respectful, sort
Yeah,
things out, and they'll love you. They will love you,
yeah, yeah,
but you've got to value
absolutely.
it.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not always what you believe, is it? It's kind of like, it's their internal beliefs which you've got to see to. So, like you say, the worries a customer may have is like turning up on time. Is he going to be clean and tidy?
Yes.
Worried, like, the reverse psychology of sort of saying, around Christmas time, if your mother-in-law's come in, is your house looking a bit shabby? People don't bite on those sort of things, don't they?
Mm.
And it's like, there's certain ways to market your business. Um, but yeah, I agree. It's all about self-worth, and again, going back to beliefs about yourself, how your early life can shape it.
Your early life, but significant events later as well. Because
Mm,
although the brain is starting to develop about 7 or 8 into a cognitive, rational approach, it's not there yet. My 8-year-old
mm,
granddaughter is very clearly not there yet. And what happens is, and I thought it was to 25, but there is some studies suggesting that our brain is still growing and developing, well on into adulthood. So any experiences we get, the good ones are stored and the negative
Mm,
ones are stored, and then there's the neutral ones which it stores but doesn't take any attention to. And so the brain has its own filing system, and the interesting thing is that as a human we are all wired on the negative side.
mm,
So it doesn't have to have started in those early years. It could have been something that you've experienced later on, or whatever that might be. It's an event
yeah.
or something.
It's almost like significant emotional
That's the
events
one. I was going to
are,
mention that, but I wasn't sure.
yeah, but they're like, obviously remembered far more than like a birthday or Christmas or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
Like the impact on your brain and your body.
Yeah, because again, there's a book called "The Body Keeps the Score," back down to the
Mm,
cellular memory again. So the body has remembered something, and I very often liken it to a photo snap or something. A moment in time, and that's what it's remembering. And we talk very much about within cognitive hypnotherapy about ways we can clear that. Color can be the most easy and beautiful way to clear those blockages. So,
mm,
and we do that quite a lot. So, certainly to your painters and decorators, I think they're a prime audience for this sort of work with yourself,
yeah,
Gary, because,
yeah.
they understand colour. And unlike the man who fitted my bathroom suite many years ago, that white meant white, not a very off-white cream, which was very different.
Mm,
It was like, what colour is that? That's not white. Yes, it is, he said. It's
yeah,
not.
yeah,
So they'll understand the nuances of colours and be able to apply that to clear things because it just makes such a difference, I think.
yeah. And yeah, that's another, we could do another podcast on methodologies and what we mean by colors and how
Mm,
you see stuff. Um, what was interesting when I saw some clients, I only saw clients part time for a couple of years, was whenever they described a problem, I always said, how old do you feel now, like describing it?
mm.
And say someone was 50 years old, they're never like, their brain is always like describing something when they were like 10 or 15, or it was really interesting. I always ask that every single client, how old do you feel whilst you're describing this problem?
It's a good
And your
point.
brain's just taking you back, to when that problem is. And it just shows you when you need to resolve stuff if you're still talking about a problem from 25, 35 years ago, which is impacting you today.
I think people are stuck with where therapy or therapeutic interventions are, because I think we did way more than just therapy within cognitive hypnotherapy, because we could move people
Mm,
forward. We did a lot of positive workings as well, didn't we? Where do you
absolutely.
want to be? What do you want to do? And it wasn't coaching per se, but it was helping the client to move on into those new ways of being and clearing the things that would get in the way. So for me, I think a lot of people are stuck in the 20th century with it, that it was going to take years. And in fact, I started
Mm,
training as a counsellor, and when she said
mm,
they could come back to you year after year, I was impatient, I have to say, and I said, well, I don't think I could do that. I want to slap him. Do
mm.
something. Get out there. Do something.
Yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't do that now, obviously, politically correct and everything. And I'm not quite so impatient. Just don't get to see me in a car. But I think for me, the very view of seeking any help is still not seen in a positive light, and possibly
Mm,
within the trades more than ever. I mean, I have seen. I think I said it before this. I have seen carpenters. I did see a plumber. How on earth I did it, I don't know, and it wasn't necessarily a great thing. But he was out on the road and he worked long, long days. I used to have to talk to him in his van. I
mm,
could see the light fading in the background while he was in his van. Bless
yeah.
him. But they were rare. These people stepping forward are rare. But I don't think it's changing, but it's not changing enough yet, so that everybody can
No,
realise you don't have to be broken to get help.
no, you don't.
It's
No.
It,
No, it's
yeah,
like, you go to gym or whatever, you food, and you do, everyone does all that stuff, but your car has an MOT and service, but people never have a service on their brain, do they?
no, they don't.
It's like, what's wrong in having that done? I speak openly about, getting help from Jane, who's a Questie. I speak openly about it because I was in a terrible state, when in my 30s, and she changed how my wife even said, I've been changed massively since seeing Jane and studying Quest and that. I've been a completely different person. So that's amazing.
It is. And I was listening to a Simon Sinek
Yeah, I
clip.
like him.
I like him a lot. And it was a very short clip. And I'm not saying seeing somebody like you or I, or coach or whatever, that there won't be a process behind it. So it could still take some time.
Yes.
And what he was saying is that, if you are looking to get fit, go to the gym. If you're looking to lose weight and you go on a diet, anything like this is going to involve some investment of time and obviously some money. And you know, it's about being happier. And unless if being happier or letting go of, certain behaviours that no longer work for you
Mm,
is worth your while, then it's worth the investment in time. And you may not see the change instantly.
mm,
You might,
mm,
but for most of it, it's a gradual process that goes on behind the scenes, if you like, outside of
absolutely.
your awareness. But it'll be other people who pick up on it. So I love the fact that your wife noticed, and in fact,
Mm,
it will be more likely to be other people who will notice before you
mm,
do that something has changed, because you're
yeah.
living with it. It's normal, and what you were
Yeah.
living with before was normal until somebody highlighted it. So those bad habits that you may have had.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I thought that was quite a nice way of putting it, as did you.
Yeah. And like you said, it exactly just what you said. I didn't really know what was changing as such. But then it struck me one when I was going away and we were at the airport, and normally that would be a time of high anxiety for me for one reason or another. And I was walking through the airport, and I was like, I just smiled to myself, and I was like, I feel normal. What the hell? And it was just, honestly, it was the best feeling ever.
Yeah,
It was nothing to do with, travel and flying or nothing like that. It was just, a control issue and sort of, various other things. And suddenly to let that all go was was amazing. What I would say is, everyone's individual in their problems. I do see a lot of stress in brush wizards, feast or famine, one week being happy with a job, getting a bad job the following week, having subbies that are not up to scratch, thinking about, do you just go on your own as a business? Um, a typical tradie coming to you, obviously it's different in every case, but I'm guessing high anxiety. Um, well, let's look at me. Anxiety, I'd look at jobs and then not do the quote for 2 weeks because my mindset wasn't right. Um, how could you help someone? How
um,
could you
yeah.
strip it back?
Well, I'm always looking for the emotional content because that's what's getting in the way. There is a belief behind it. Do not get me wrong, but
Mm,
if it wasn't for the emotional content, we wouldn't be feeling the I'll do that later, the procrastination. I'll get in the right mindset for it. So I feel the
mm,
emotions are a message for us, a feedback system that says there's a problem here. Hello. So I would
mm,
look for what the emotion is, and then I would go straight to, well, what is it that's going on for you? What do you believe about yourself? What does that mean about you? What's
mm,
happening? And depending on who I'm talking to, once if they come out with it easily, then that's great. And if they don't, I'd be looking to understand what's important to them. Because if it's important to them, they've just got a mismatch going on somewhere. Um, I have an empowerment model, which is one of the ways I've slightly deviated from CogHip. It's there, but I've made it. more in more a model. And this idea is that we've got an experience, which is, this is just life happening to us. It's going on all the time. Underneath that is our response to it, our behaviours and habits. So something will happen and we'll just respond because we're too busy these days to stop and think, for most, not all the time, but we don't have the time. Then underneath that is the thought processes that goes on. And then under that is the emotional content, and that emotional content of anxiety, stress, worry, and all the other things that go on are the clues that the body is giving you back. It could be constant headaches. It could be, lots of aches and pains in certain places. And I know carpet
Yeah.
fitters particularly have a
Yeah.
limited shelf life because of the impact on their knees and how they're working. We all have our own things that we have to face. So the body is giving feedback all the time. It's whether we pay attention to it. And if we can clear the emotional content and then tackle the belief, because we don't always get to the right belief, but if we can, then what happens? Everything just settles. And that's where we see the change. So I'm looking for the emotion primarily, because I believe if we can calm that emotion down, that's your
Yeah.
nervous system reacting. It's being triggered by that experience, that external
Yeah.
experience, bypassing this completely and your behaviours, and it's going straight to, hello, this is a problem. If we can clear and calm that down, we've got a better chance with what you're thinking and the beliefs that are going on. So
Yeah, because your body's and your mind and body's reacting in a split
yeah,
second. And then suddenly you're like, how am I feeling like I am now? Because it's like years ago, well, when people start out, often it's because they like decorating. So, and then it seems to me, people get in their late 40s or 40s, 50s, 60s, been doing it a long time. Is it because it might be they don't like it anymore? Or is it other factors? And one of the exercises I done recently was like the wheel of life. So when you're younger, you've got not maybe many responsibilities, but then the wheel of life is like finances, obviously health, business, all 6 or 8 different categories. And if you do that exercise and you find your health is on 10% in all areas of your life, that can have a knock-on effect to business, finances. Do you know what I mean? Like, in an ideal world, you'd want it all on 100% your will, but it would never happen.
and just as you've
If
got one
one
sorted
or
out, the other one
two,
goes, doesn't it?
yeah, that's it. But if one or two is significantly low,
Yeah.
it could have a massive impact. And suddenly you don't hate decorating. You hate the fact that your skin, or you hate the fact that your relationship's not good, and it just knocks it into decorating, doesn't it?
You're right, and I think that wheel of life, I don't use that nearly enough, I don't think, but it's a
Yeah, I just
powerful
remembered it. I was
tool.
like, it's bloody good
It is
exercise.
a really good exercise to do,
Mm,
and there's a couple of levels to it as well, which I love also.
mm,
So apart from the initial one, it's then, well, what is it needs to look like? So suddenly you're future pacing them to see
yes,
what they're
yeah,
really looking for, and then what you're doing is finding the gap. Just like when you go in to
yeah,
do your painting and decorating, what you're looking for is where the faults are, but you've also identified, the things that are really important to get on with, and what you're going to
mm,
need to fill those gaps to do it. So,
yeah,
fill holes in, or you might have to paint it all just to put the right color paint on. I don't know. You get the
mm,
message. So I love that. I think that's a really good one. What was going through my head as you said it as well? There's another thing, and I need to find that. It's not gender. It's more to do with the human race. But the ages of man, and it's something like the 20s are all about, suddenly you're young, free, single, and even if you're married, you're out there, you're living life, aren't you? You're really
mm,
going for it. And then in the 30s, we're all sort of starting to think about, well, settling down, and where am I going in life? What am I doing? Or you're on that career ladder. In the 40s, you've either had a family and you're like, okay, we're just holding it together now. And you're coming up to the sandwich generation. You've got
yeah,
your own children and your older children, parents,
yeah,
growing
yeah,
older.
yeah,
You're caught in that trap. By the time you get into your 50s, you're beginning to feel a bit ragged, aren't you? The children have left.
yeah,
You may still have older parents, but you're getting to that age where it's like, hold on a moment, I'm not that far off of retirement either, am I? What am I going to do? Where am I going? And for most people, they think that's the end of their life. Let me tell them it's not. I'm in my
Yeah.
60s and I'm still working and doing the things that I love, and there's more to come. And I can see myself working, for another good 10 years, I would say. But who knows? Life will do what it needs to do. But you don't have to do the same
Mm,
thing. What I love, what you
mm,
said at the very beginning of this, is that you trained into something else that you was of interest to you. And I think one
mm,
of the big things about where we are today compared to where our parents and their parents were is there's so many opportunities to do
mm,
something different on the side. And that's a challenge for the tradespeople because they don't work 9 to 5. They work long hours, but you
mm.
can carve out some time to do something different for you that potentially could be something that you could, bring in an extra income, or can be a hobby for when you do eventually retire and
Yeah, I
earn
mean,
money. I think,
if if you look at like what I've done, like so I was always been decorator, but I look at my not well, you can't call them side hustles. I've done garage conversions for a bit, project managed them, exterior cleaning. I tried a bit of resin, um, hypnotherapy, not with a view to a career change, but it was just an intrigue of mine. And then like what I'm doing now with Brush Wizards, that's 6 years ago. It started as a community. And, people know I have monetized it with sponsors and various bits and bobs. And I'm 50 now, so you can change. And I really, quite a few of my brush wizards come on and they're doing something different, or someone's just invented a little gadget for when people spray doors. And I'm promoting him. And I love seeing people try different stuff out
yeah,
because that's always been a fascination of mine. And, like new startups and side hustles and stuff. And I feel whatever your passion is, you can create a community around it. And who knows, like what I've done with Brush Wizards, you can develop it into an amazing community.
and I love what you've done, and I think that's pretty much. I mean, I'm still going by my experiences with those people that I've known, and I know it's what I've
Mm,
engaged with, but I've known in trade. Is sometimes the mindset's not in the right space. You're
yeah.
talking to me, and you're like you're closed. You're not listening. You're not open to. But it sometimes it takes a little while for that seed to land and drop, and then
Mm,
take off. But I love what you're doing. What a great example. As you say, you've got a community. I don't know how that works, but obviously, having this that they can tune into, and you know, knowing your background now with being a Questie being a
mm,
company that we trained with, Quest
yeah.
Institute, I can see that you're the sort of man who will listen to them and will guide them in the right place. And what we need is more authentic. I've never been a big fan of that word, but I've never found an alternative that says you're coming from a good space,
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
space
You
that's
know,
not. It's not about you as an individual, but it's about them. And I think that's a really wonderful thing to do. And I love the fact that you've done it.
yeah. And just to finish off, it sounds like, or I don't want it to sound like I've created a community and made money off them. I haven't. I run a membership if people want to join it, but that's got a ton of benefits. But what we've done is create a safe space for painters to chat in a Facebook community. Even that wasn't good enough for me. So this year we've introduced like county hubs on WhatsApp, and people are filtering from the WhatsApp group into these county hubs, connecting for work, connecting for socials, all free of charge, to kind of just help people be less isolated and less alone in the industry. And that's why I'm so thrilled that you come on to chat. You're the first one on my podcast.
Oh, well, in which case I'm on it.
On
Thank you. Mm.
to talk about it more. And like you say, if people are struggling, just to reach out, and obviously we'll leave all your details and stuff. But reach out and just talk, and you can change massively.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people will offer a free session up front. I do. I know
Mm,
others will probably do that, even if it's 30 minutes for you. Get an opportunity, just as you say, to talk and download, maybe get something to take away. So there's no obligation, certainly with myself. And I say there will be others.
absolutely.
So I may not be the person, but might be able to point you in the right direction. And yeah, I'm honoured. Thank you so much for having me along. I wasn't sure, but whether I would be useful or not. But I think perhaps I might have been, if only to say
100%.
you're okay, and anything that's not working is not your fault. But now it's time to take responsibility for it.
Absolutely. And just to show where you've come from, it's a bank holiday Monday now, 10 to 8 at night, and you've kindly took time out of your day to come and have a chat. So I know yourself and all the other questies for what I'm going to have on are genuine and just genuinely want to help people. So I appreciate you coming on and spending some time.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Gary, and to anybody who's listening.
Cheers, Kim.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll hit stop and then we'll have a quick chat.